Hello everybody, fellow members of Vets for Peace and friends. My name is Chuck Searcy. I'm speaking to you from Hanoi, Vietnam, where I have lived and worked since 1995, mainly dealing with war legacies, explosive ordnance, or EO, the term is now used, and Agent Orange. 45 years ago, on April 30th, 1975, the war ended for us Americans. But the war didn't end for the Vietnamese. Their struggle continues even today to rid the country of bombs and mines and to overcome the legacy of Agent Orange. Today, explosive ordnance remains a serious threat throughout Vietnam. Of the estimated 8 million tons of munitions used by the U.S. during the war, about 10% failed to detonate on impact. Thousands of unstable and dangerous munitions lie on the ground or just inches under the soil. More than 100,000 Vietnamese have been killed or injured since 1975. Survivors face a lifetime of permanent disabilities. About a third of the casualties have been children 16 years of age or younger. These families are among the poorest in Vietnam. I came back to Vietnam in 1995 to work on a project sponsored by the Vietnam Veterans of America Foundation, VVAF, making orthopedic braces for disabled children. I began to notice newspaper and TV reports about children, farmers, local villagers being blown up by bombs and mines. As an Army enlisted man in 1967 and 1968, I was in a military intelligence unit in Saigon. I saw the war through the lens of the 1968 Tet Offensive. Later, I was attuned to problems facing U.S. veterans at home, but I was woefully uninformed about the damage still being done in Vietnam. When U.S. troops withdrew from Vietnam, the physical devastation was almost beyond comprehension. Industry was non-existent. The country's infrastructure and agricultural production had been decimated. Of 21,000 Vietnamese villages that existed before the war, 13,000 had been severely damaged or destroyed. Some 950 churches and pagodas were destroyed by bombing, along with 350 hospitals and 1,500 maternity wards, and nearly 3,000 high schools and universities. More than 15,000 bridges were destroyed, while 26 million bomb craters were created by B-52s and fighter jets. The people of Vietnam faced the arduous task of rebuilding their country against overwhelming odds. Crops had to be planted in fields where the harvest might be deadly due to landmines or cluster munitions or artillery rounds. I didn't know all that when I came here in 1995, but as I dug deeper, I learned more. I found that central Vietnam, in particular Quang Tri province, had the biggest problem. It was the area most severely contaminated by explosive ordnance in Vietnam because it was the area most heavily bombed during the war. In 1995, the founders of a project called Peace Trees, based in Seattle, came to Vietnam. I went with Geraldine Brousseau and her late husband, Danon Perry, to Quang Tri province to propose to officials there a project to plant trees in an area that could be cleared of explosive ordnance. The Vietnamese agreed. A 6-hectare site in Dong Ha town was chosen to be cleared of bombs and mines. More than 300 of them dug out of the ground to allow 20 Americans later that year to join local Vietnamese in planting 1,000 trees on the safe ground, the site of the former U.S. Marine base. That was the start. Relations between the U.S. and Vietnam steadily improved. Members of Congress and administration officials visited Vietnam along with veterans, business delegations, students, the media. We never missed an opportunity to push for increased funding from the U.S. government to deal with the legacies of war. Most people agreed that this was America's moral obligation. The issue of explosive ordnance was frankly easier to argue than Agent Orange, a topic that was still very contentious at that time. But cleaning up bombs and mines, policing our brass, as a retired Marine general put it, was a no-brainer. U.S. government funding came to Peace Trees, then to the Mines Advisory Group, MAG. Project Renew began in 2001 and in 2008 joined in partnership with Norwegian People's Aid, NPA. Annual funding in the beginning was about $2 to $3 million, but that has continued to grow year by year. In the last 25 years, the U.S. has provided more than $150 million in funding for various mine action organizations. After more than 2 decades of normalized relations between the U.S. and Vietnam, with increased funding from the U.S. and close cooperation between the two countries, we are seeing some positive results. In Quang Tri Province, I have been associated with Project Renew since the effort was launched in 2001 as an agreement between the provincial government and the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund, VVMF. When this agreement came to an end in 2001 with VVMF, the effort continued without interruption, and now Renew's main partner is Norwegian People's Aid, NPA, one of the leading humanitarian disarmament organizations in the world. Our mission is to make Quang Tri Province safe from explosive ordnance such as mines, cluster bombs, grenades, and artillery rounds. This is done through a survey methodology, interviewing local people and comparing their knowledge on the ground with bombing maps provided by the U.S. Department of Defense. Demining teams then pinpoint the location of ordnance based on evidence, saving time and money. The ordnance is identified and safely detonated or moved to a demolition site. The teams move on to their next tasks. As each task is completed, information is transmitted to a centralized database unit that is part of the Quang Tri Mine Action Center. The data is real-time, accessible to everyone, built on an IMSMA platform, that's Information Management System for Mine Action, the world standard for such reporting. The database unit in Quang Tri Province is the only IMSMA reporting system worldwide that is on the web and accessible by anyone in the world at any time. In the past 10 years, Renew and NPA teams have destroyed nearly 70,000 bombs. The number of accidents has gone down from an average 70 or 80 casualties a year to 0 accidents in 2018. Last year, in 2019, there were 0 accidents. This year, so far, 0 accidents. That has been our goal all along, and that will continue to be our mission. 0 accidents, making Vietnam safe. We now know that is an achievable goal. Risk education is teaching school children, farmers, local villagers how to identify ordnance they find and how to report it immediately to one of our 32 Renew NPA teams. The result has been increased information, greater numbers of UXO cleaned up, and decreasing accidents. Last year, Renew NPA mobile teams received more than 1,000 call-ins, resulting in more than 10,000 bombs being destroyed. Renew also provides prosthetic limbs and other devices to Vietnamese who have been injured by bombs and mines. Nearly 2,000 amputees have received artificial limbs. Renew supports 3 blind workshops, providing incomes for UXO victims who have lost their sight in bomb or mine accidents. Quang Tri's success has come to the attention of other provinces, which have asked Renew teams to show them how to start similar efforts in their own provinces. Renew staff are now cooperating with 3 additional provinces to expand the Renew model. Finally, I want to say something about the current COVID-19 pandemic and how it connects to Vietnam's response to the EO threat here. As the world was very slow to recognize, Vietnam has been a leader among governments in its calibrated, steady, professional, and unified response to the threat of the coronavirus. It's one of the few countries in the world where the problem so far has been managed very effectively. Ministry of Health reports, which are released to the public at least daily on the web and in print and broadcast media, have confirmed that Vietnam has one of the best records in the world. 0 accidents, number of cases in the low 400s, and a handful of people still under quarantine. There has been a new development. By the time you see this, there may be worse news, but there are now 11 new cases that have been discovered in the city of Da Nang, Vietnam. Da Nang is now on lockdown. Specialist health teams have been flown in by the government. Vietnam is once again responding with alacrity to this threat, and most of us here have confidence that Vietnam will manage the problem. How has Vietnam achieved this success? Several ways. First, Vietnam acted very quickly. They closed the border from China when they recognized the threat. Secondly, they mobilized emergency plans that were already in place and ready. They geared all of their response toward prevention. And finally, the government shared full and transparent information with the entire population using the internet, social media, mobile phone systems. People complied with instructions because they had been fully informed. They trusted the government. This demonstrates what Vietnam as a nation could accomplish in seeking the goal of making all of Vietnam safe from the danger of explosive ordnance. Quang Tri province, one province, has demonstrated how this can be done. A combination of reliable survey data, trained and equipped professional teams to intervene when danger is identified by survey data or call-ins from local people, along with an informed, aware population, children and adults, of the nature of the threat and their responsibility to protect themselves and their families and their neighbors by notifying EOD teams when they discovered EO. That is the right combination. That will keep people safe. Vietnam is moving toward a national policy which will achieve these goals, although the country is still hampered by decision-making slowed by bureaucratic layers of approval. Some officials still think mine action is a national defense issue, and it is not. It is a humanitarian issue that requires the same kind of urgency and flexibility that the Vietnamese have demonstrated in their success with the battle against COVID-19. Vietnam has the capability and the capacity to manage the EO problem and make Vietnam safe, demonstrating to the rest of the world how this can be done. Vietnam could be and should be a contributor worldwide to the effort to clean up the debris of military actions around the world. Vietnam is respected and admired by almost every nation. Vietnam is on friendly terms with every nation in the world. Vietnam could do a great deal to make the world a safer and more peaceful place. This would truly bring closure to one of the painful legacies of the war. Thank you.